Frito-Lay factory workers are striking for the first time in Topeka, Kansas. This is in regard to the working conditions and, more importantly, the insane work hours and the fact that they're not able to take a day off due to a lack of workers. So many of the 850 workers at the facility say that they work 84 hours a week with no days off. Workers are nominally supposed to work 8-hour shifts, but because of shortages, workers are often forced to add on an extra 4 hours before or after their shifts. And the word forced is relevant here, right? Because this isn't an option like, hey, you wanna make some extra money and maybe work some overtime hours? No, it's not up for discussion. In fact, these workers say that they're punished if they say no. So workers call these extended shifts suicides because they say the schedule kills you over time. Some workers haven't had a single day off in 5 months, including Saturdays and Sundays. And finally, before we get to some video of these workers, in its latest contract offer, Frito-Lay has said it would raise wages by 4% over the next 2 years and put a cap at 60 hours a week. Frito-Lay workers who are unionized with bakery, confectionery, tobacco workers, and grain millers local 218 say that's not enough and are demanding an end to forced overtime. So they're striking, and solidarity with them. I think that they're striking for an incredibly important reason, and I don't want to put words in their mouths. Why don't we hear from the workers themselves?
Forced overtime causes divorces. It causes people to kill themselves that used to work here. Okay, there have been several employees that have killed themselves, okay, that have worked here over the years, okay? This is a continual thing.
We have to do something with the suicide shifts, because to work 12 hours and be off 8 and work 12 hours, you got time, travel time and everything. I said that's a safety risk.
Imagine being an employee in here that has not had a day off for 5 months. That is the reality of what you're seeing. That is the reality of why you're really seeing the picket over here.
4 or 5 years ago, we had a guy, and man, he was working all the time, and he stopped off at a rest stop on I-70, and he fell asleep, and he didn't wake up.
No, I mean, it's so disgusting and heartbreaking to hear these stories. I love that these workers have decided to take action and engage in the strike. And it's obviously much easier to do that when you're unionized, which is why it's important for workers to organize and form a union. Woz, I know you have strong feelings about these types of stories, so I wanted you to jump in and share your thoughts.
Yeah, I just think about, it's connected to the last sort of segment we did about Lindsey Graham talking about quote unquote inflation. And that's the boogeyman, that's the new boogeyman, right? People need to get back to work. All the money in the economy is causing inflation because we let people have money while they were suffering without them having to work like slaves for it, et cetera, et cetera. And the conversation is never, well, maybe people aren't going back to work because the jobs suck. Yep. This job sucks, period. The conditions under which these people have to work under are inexcusable. It's deplorable. The idea that somebody would never get any days off or that they would be forced to work 12 hours a day, no matter what, is preposterous. Workers fought for the 5-day work week. Like, people died behind the 5-day work week. Like, lives were lost behind that, right? And the Capitol was doing it they just wanted to run you into a nub. And let's face it, Tostitos and them, they got money. This isn't a money problem. They could go out and hire more people, pay them a livable wage and fix this in a day. But then, Anna, come on, profit margins though.
Exactly.
Like, the rich can't get richer that way. It's absurd. This is embarrassing stuff. An idea that a corporation that huge, that profitable and wealthy can't create conditions under which workers, can work safely. By the way, if you're working 7 days a week and you're operating heavy machinery, that's a health hazard. That's a problem. That's when terrible things happen on the job. This is just insanity.
So, the workers are forced to work these long hours. They don't have the ability to say no. It's not like they're being given this option to make a little extra cash. No, they're being coerced, because if anyone dare say no or challenge their managers on working long hours, they will be reprimanded, and there's that threat of losing their jobs. So let's take a look at what the workers had to say about that and what they've experienced in regard to retaliation.
Yeah, the point system is used to fire people.
We're getting penalized for taking time off.
I've had to cancel so many doctor appointments, dentist appointments, that I could not make them because of the forced overtime. Walking out the plant last second, hey, you're forced over. Things need to change. This is not a way you treat people.
Yeah, it's not a way to treat people. And this is, obviously I'm against everything that Frito-Lay is doing here, especially as a highly profitable Fortune 500 company. But this is the way a corporation is gonna behave under a system that's set up the way that our system is, right? Because these companies have a fiduciary responsibility to provide a return on investment or work in the best interests of their investors, as opposed to their workers, the very people who do the labor necessary to turn a profit for this company. But the profits don't go to the actual workers. The profits go to the investors. And so I want to give you a few other statements from Frito-Lay workers who spoke to Vice. They are anonymous in this case, but I think what they share with Vice is telling. This is not a good job. At 7 a.m., our warehouse is 100 degrees. We don't have air conditioning. We have cooks in the kitchen on the fryers that are 130 or 140 degrees, making chips and sweating like pigs. Meanwhile, the managers have AC. Another worker tells Vice, quote, I can tell you that many people have had heart attacks in the heat at Frito-Lay since I've been here. One guy died a few years ago, and the company had people pick him up, move him over to the side, and put another person in his spot without shutting the business down for 2 seconds. I remember hearing similar stories about Amazon warehouses. So this isn't just illustrative of one company. This is something that we see keep happening over and over and over again. And it's not about a company's identity. It's about the system under which these companies are functioning and where the incentives are. The incentives are for the investor class, right? To do right by them, not to do right by the actual workers who are helping this company turn a profit in the first place.
Yeah, and you would think that this isn't 1905, right? Like, we didn't just start figuring out industrialization. The idea that you would have a factory that didn't have access to AC in the summertime for your workers is just absurd. And again, this is what happens to working class people. You get pushed around, you get bullied when you don't form a collective. It's the only way to combat corporate power, the moneyed powers. Like, by yourself, an individual saying, but hold on, I have a doctor's appointment that I need to make. Nah, F that. You have to work 12 hours today. Like, individually, you're not gonna be able to get this done and fight these people. It has to be collectively, because that's all they respond to. They don't respond to morality or something based on principle or something that just is obviously the right thing to do. They don't respond to that. They only respond to power, and you can't achieve any power by yourself as a worker. So again, I'm very heartened by the fact that these people have decided collectively that they're going on strike to stick it to these damn people.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned earlier, these are workers who are unionized, which is a good thing, because this might be the first time that they're striking, but understand that under a union, these workers have additional protection. So they're able to strike, right? Now, there's the other side of it too, which just briefly I want to tackle, because unionized workers should be represented by the union and they should get regular raises. But some of these workers are saying that they haven't gotten raises in decades. For instance, one worker told Vice, I make $20.50 an hour after working 37 years here. I haven't gotten a raise in a decade. 3 years ago, I got a $600 bonus that was taxed, and 3 years before that, I got another $600 bonus. That was my only raise for the past 10 years. This is from a Fortune 500 company that is making billions. And so I don't, that's a problem, right? Like if you guys have been unionized, you deserve better representation. And how do we tackle that question, Woz? Like how do we ensure that the unions representing these workers, the leadership in these unions are actually on a regular basis fighting for the best interests of these workers and ensuring that they get better working conditions, better hours, and also better pay and benefits?
Yeah, and I think honestly, this is where the role of the government comes in as far as when you see stuff like the minimum wage hike, right? It makes it so that these private interests, because if all the private interests are colluding with each other to ensure that wages stay down and stay stagnant, somebody else has to step into that void. It has to be the union in conjunction with the government that is allegedly for the people and of the people, right? Like that's the point of our government. This is where they're supposed to step in and be like, guys, you're making a ton of cash here. Spread the wealth around a little bit. Oh, you don't want to do that? We're gonna force you to do it legally. That's the only answer here, specifically when you see that in industries all across the board, wages have remained stagnant for decades. And that is this government attitude, which has been laissez-faire, let the market do what it does. Private interests are never wrong. Chasing money is the right thing to do at every freaking turn. The government has to step up, and to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And one way that the Democratic Party has tried to step up is by proposing what's known as the PRO Act. Let's keep it real. It has, in my opinion, 0% chance of passing. I mean, we can't even pass a wildly popular infrastructure bill. But the PRO Act is an important piece of legislation that I wish could get passed because it does strengthen labor rights, and we certainly need that now more than ever, especially when you see the working conditions that many workers are suffering under.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.